Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be doing another blind taste test rankings video. Now, the way that these work, for anybody that has not seen one of our previous blind taste test rankings videos, is we have 4 cups of coffee over here, and we have 4 bags of coffee over here, and we're trying to identify which of these cups is which of these bags based off of taste alone. Then we're going to be ranking them in order of our least favorite to our most favorite. And there's a theme behind each and every one of these videos, and the theme behind this video is a focus on the farmer, Jose Pepe Jijon, and his Típica Mejorada variety, which is arguably the most discussed coffee in the world right now. So let me give you a little bit of background context as to how this video idea came about. And it starts a couple of months ago when we reviewed a coffee from one line, which was the Lumapata, also a Típica Mejorada coffee. And in that video, I said that I was thoroughly impressed by that coffee, but I had a feeling that there was something very special about that Ecuador specifically. So fast forward a couple of months, and I tried a version of this coffee from Nomad, which I was also really impressed by, only to hear that some of my favorite coffee roasters in the world, including Manhattan, were also going to be utilizing this coffee from this farm. So it was something I definitely wanted to try, and as a result, we have 4 coffees from Jose Pepe Jijon, 3 Típica Mejoradas, as well as a Geisha. So let me go ahead and introduce what we have in our hands, starting with the coffee from Manhattan, which is the Pepe Jijon. And this one right here is going to be a little different from the rest. Obviously, they're all going to be a little different, but this one right here is a dioxidator wash processed version of this coffee. And I believe Manhattan is the only one that has this specific lot, so this one's going to be unique to Manhattan themselves. Next up, we have the natural process version of the Típica Mejorada, and this is from Coffea Circulor, of course based out of Arendal, Norway, and the rest of them are also from Coffea Circulor, including what we have right here, which is the Geisha. So obviously I can never say no to a Geisha, and this one also comes from Pepe Jijon's farm. And then last we have the washed version of the Típica Mejorada. So we will see how this turns out, and as always, none of these cups are labeled anywhere except for on the bottom. Just like to shuffle them around for good measure, and it gives us an opportunity to discuss what we do have in our hands. 3 wash processed coffees, 1 natural, and 3 Típica Mejoradas, and 1 Geisha. And what really made the Típica Mejorada so nice and unique was the fact that it's a really sweet cup of coffee from what I've had. I've had other versions of this same coffee, and they always seem to turn out just really nice, really unique, and really sweet. So I have some really high expectations given that this is arguably the most luxurious blind taste test we've ever done. All of these are higher end offerings from 2 really prestigious and notable coffee roasters. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. We're going to start right now with cup number 1. Let's give this a shot. Okay, this one right here is really nice. But obviously I feel like all of them are going to be pretty nice. This one right here, this is probably going to be a consistent theme. It's really clean, it's really sweet. I don't imagine that that's going to be the natural processed coffee. It's got a fair bit of florality to it as well, but I imagine that most of them are going to have at least a fair bit of florality. It's one of the wash processed coffees. Don't know which one it is off the top of my head, but it's a really impressive coffee. Cup number 2. And this one right here is the natural. And I fully expected the natural to maybe have a little bit more robustness to it. It does have a slight fermentiness to it as well, and that's what's going to differentiate it and probably cause it to finish maybe as my least favorite coffee, just based off of this first impression and assumption. It is still a little cleaner than I typically experience from natural processed coffees. So positives to say about it, definitely on the sweeter side of things, but I feel like it's going to have a hard time competing with my preference of delicate wash processed coffees. Cup number 3. Okay, this one right here is really interesting. This one right here has a very interesting sort of citric zestiness to it. I don't think I enjoy it as much as the first one, but it is definitely much more enjoyable than the second cup of coffee I've experienced. So I'm going to put it in second place for right now. I feel like I know what that one is. Definitely got some wonderful sweetness to it. A little bit of clarity, not quite as clean as the first cup of coffee that I had, and some pretty strong sweetness as well as a slight bit of this interesting herbality to it. I'm pretty confident I know what that one is. Cup number 4. This one right here is the best. This one right here is really, really impressive. It has got a wonderfully clean base to it. Super floral, very strong on the white flowers. This one right here just really impressed me off those first couple of impressions. That is a really, really nice cup of coffee. Okay. I'm confident on what these last two are, so let me go ahead and place what I think that they are. This one right here I assumed was the natural based off of that first impression, and I'm going to go ahead and put that right there. Just goes to show that, especially when it comes to higher end coffee offerings, the washed is typically going to perform better than a natural. I usually actually like more standard natural processed coffees in general than the higher end naturals. So that one right there, I feel like it's actually a little bit of a distant fourth compared to these other coffees on this table. This one right here, I assume is going to be the Pepe Jijon from Manhattan. And it's still cleaner, it's still sweeter. It's got a little bit, as mentioned, of that slight herbality to it as well. I think what really kind of made me pinpoint that it was this coffee was because this is a little bit different of a processing method as opposed to a couple of straightforward washed coffees. So I think just the difference in the processing method made it maybe slightly less clean than the other two coffees that we have on the table, which would indicate that it is going to be the Manhattan coffee. All right, here's where things are going to get tricky because it's going to be really difficult for me to differentiate between the Típica Mejorada and the Geisha. They are both exceptional cups of coffee. This one right here might actually be a contender for my favorite coffee of the year. This is a really stunning cup of coffee. I'm going to guess, based off my typical preferences, that this one is probably going to be the Geisha, and that this one right here is the Típica Mejorada. And if that's the case, then I guess Geishas are still king for me. My favorite coffees in general, my favorite variety in general. All right, let's see how we did starting with this one right here. And I'm confident on these two. So this one should say CN for Coffea Circulor Natural. And it does. Easiest one to pick out on the table. Definitely the most vibrant in terms of the robustness that comes from this coffee. So that one was always going to be the easiest to pick out. Definitely a distant fourth compared to the other coffees on this table. This one right here I said was the Pepe Jijon from Manhattan, so it should say M for Manhattan, and it does. So on the cleaner side of things, interesting sweetness to it. Maybe a little bit, it's a little bit more varied, I think, than the other ones, because this one, funny enough, I feel like it's in between. It's got a little bit more of the vibrancy that comes from the naturals, while at the same time having a little bit more clarity than the natural has. So I think it's kind of fitting where it places based off of how it actually kind of separates these coffees in general. All right, this one right here, here's where things are gonna get tricky. I said it was the Mejorada, so this one should say CW for Coffea Circulor washed, and it does. And I think my main reason for the assumption was Geishas tend to be a little bit more clean. Interestingly enough, it was coming out a little bit more vibrant than the Mejorada version of this coffee. So this one right here, of course, should say CG for Coffea Circulor Geisha, and it does. Okay, so 4 out of 4. This was a really impressive blind taste test rankings video because I would say that I was really enjoying these first 3 coffees. This one might get better, this one might improve over time, but again, strong preference against the naturals compared to higher end washed coffees in general. But these two at the end, they have real potential to be some of my favorite coffees of the entire year. They're really, really nice cups of coffee. Even that Pepe Jijon from Manhattan has definitely some interesting potential, and I'm curious to see how it might finish. If that one opens up a little bit more and get a little bit more sweetness from that coffee, then there's a strong possibility it could contend in terms of being my favorite from this blind taste test by the end. But 4 for 4. There will be a review on each and every one of these coffees that I'm very much looking forward to discuss, so keep your eyes out for that. As I always say, if you guys enjoy these sort of videos, then give this video a like, as they take the most work and effort to do, but they are also the most fun to do. If you're enjoying the content in general, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a blind taste test rankings video featuring 4 coffees from Jose Pepe Jijon. Thank you for watching.